I never thought I'd be a widow at 38. The funeral home smelled like lilies and something else I couldn't name. Maybe grief has a scent. I stood there in my black dress, the one Daniel always said made me look beautiful, and I felt nothing but cold. Empty. Like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left just a shell. It had been 4 days since the accident. 4 days since the police knocked on my door at 2 a.m. to tell me my husband's car had crashed into a tree on a road he had no reason to be on. 4 days since my entire world shattered. People kept touching my shoulder, whispering things I couldn't hear. Daniel's mother sobbed loudly in the front row. His brother gave the eulogy, talking about what a devoted family man Daniel was. I almost laughed. Almost. I was staring at the closed casket, they said it was better that way, when I heard the door open behind me. Everyone turned. A woman walked in, maybe 30 years old, brown hair, wearing a simple black dress. She wasn't alone. She was holding the hand of a little girl. The child couldn't have been more than 7. Dark curly hair, small black shoes, and eyes. God, those eyes. Daniel's eyes. The exact same shade of green, the same shape, the same way they tilted slightly at the corners. My breath caught in my throat. The woman walked slowly toward the casket, the little girl clutching her hand. I watched, frozen, as they approached. The woman started crying, real, broken sobs. And then the little girl looked up at the casket and said, in the clearest voice, "Mommy, why won't Daddy wake up?" The room went silent. I felt every eye turn to me, then to her, then back to the casket. My legs almost gave out. Daniel's mother gasped. His brother stopped mid-sentence, and I stood there, staring at this child, this little girl with my dead husband's eyes, and felt my entire marriage, my entire life, collapse into a lie. Who was she? How long had Daniel? My hands were shaking, my vision blurred. The woman, the mother, caught my stare. For one brief, terrible moment, our eyes met. And I knew. I knew everything. If this broke your heart like it broke mine, hit that like button. Because this is just the beginning of what I discovered. I couldn't move. Everyone was staring. At me, at her. At the little girl who just called my husband Daddy. Daniel's mother stood up, confused, looking between me and this stranger. His brother's face went pale. The whispers started immediately, spreading through the room like poison. But I couldn't hear any of it. All I could see was that little girl, 7 years old maybe, which meant Daniel and I had been married for 15 years. 15 years. My mind raced, trying to do the math, trying to make sense of something that made no sense at all. The woman, the mother, pulled the little girl back slightly, as if suddenly realizing the bomb she'd just dropped. She whispered something to the child, wiped her tears, and they moved to the back of the room. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run to her and grab her by the shoulders and demand answers. But my body wouldn't respond. Daniel's brother finished the eulogy somehow. People started filing past the casket, paying their respects. I stood there like a statue, numb, broken, pretending to accept condolences while my brain repeated the same sentence over and over. He had a child. He had a daughter. And I never knew. The funeral ended in a blur. At the cemetery, I watched them lower Daniel into the ground. I threw a rose onto the casket like I was supposed to. I accepted more hugs, more empty words. And the whole time, I kept seeing her. The woman stayed in the back, far from the family, holding that little girl's hand. She cried quietly. The girl looked confused, sad, lost. After the burial, people started leaving, going back to their cars, their lives, their intact worlds. I waited. I watched the woman start walking toward the parking lot, the little girl dragging her feet beside her. And then I followed. My heels sank into the grass. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. But I kept walking. "Excuse me," I called out. She stopped, turned around slowly. Up close, I could see she'd been crying for hours. Her eyes were swollen, red, exhausted. "I'm sorry," she whispered immediately, her voice shaking. "I shouldn't have come. Sophie wanted to say goodbye to her dad." Sophie. Her name was Sophie. "Who are you?" I asked. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. She looked down at the little girl, then back at me. "My name is Laura," she said quietly. "And Daniel? He was Sophie's father." I felt the ground tilt beneath me. "For how long?" I managed to ask. Laura's eyes filled with fresh tears. 8 years, she whispered. 8 years. I staggered backward. "He told me he worked weekends," I heard myself say. "He said he had projects, meetings, clients." Laura's face crumpled. "I know," she said, barely audible. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was married. Not at first. When I found out..." Sophie was already 5. She loved him. "I couldn't just..." She couldn't finish. I looked at the little girl, Sophie, staring up at me with Daniel's eyes, and something inside me snapped. Not sadness, rage, pure, cold, burning rage. Drop a comment below if you've ever been lied to by someone you trusted completely, because what I found next destroyed me even more. I drove home in silence. I don't even remember getting in the car. Don't remember the route. I just remember pulling into the driveway of the house Daniel and I bought together, the house where we were supposed to grow old, and feeling like I was entering a stranger's life. Everything looked the same. The same furniture, the same photos on the walls, our wedding, vacations, anniversaries. Daniel smiling at me in every single one. Lies. All of it. Lies. I dropped my purse on the floor and went straight to his office. Daniel had always been protective of this room. "I need my space to work," he'd say. I respected that, trusted that. God, I was so stupid. I tore through his desk drawers, pulled out files, papers, old notebooks. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip anything. And then I found his laptop. He never let me use it. Said it had confidential client information. I knew his password. He'd used the same one for years, our anniversary date. I typed it in. It opened. I went straight to his emails. There were folders. So many folders. One labeled L. L for Laura. I clicked it. Hundreds of emails. Going back 8 years, exactly like she said. "Can't wait to see you and Sophie this weekend. Tell our little girl I love her. Sorry I have to miss her recital. Emma's family is visiting." Emma's family. He wrote about me like I was an obligation. An inconvenience. I scrolled further. Photos. So many photos. Daniel holding a newborn baby. Sophie, I assumed. His face glowing with pride. Daniel at a birthday party, Sophie on his shoulders, both of them laughing. Daniel teaching her to ride a bike. Daniel at a park, at the beach. At Christmas, sitting by a tree I'd never seen, opening presents with a family I didn't know existed. My stomach lurched. I ran to the bathroom and vomited. When I came back, I kept digging. Bank statements. Transfers. Monthly transfers to an account I'd never seen. $2,000 every month for 8 years. I did the math in my head. $192,000. He'd given her nearly $200,000. And that wasn't all. Receipts for toys, clothes, a deposit on an apartment. Laura's apartment, I assumed. Plane tickets to Orlando, to San Diego. Business trips he'd told me about. He'd taken them on vacation. While I stayed home alone, grading papers, waiting for him to come back and tell me about his exhausting work conferences, I felt something break inside my chest, something that would never heal. But the worst part, The absolute worst part was what I found next. A document, dated 3 months ago, a draft of a new will. Daniel had written a new will, leaving half of everything to Sophie. Half of our house, half of his life insurance, half of the savings we'd built together. He was planning to leave me, or maybe not leave, maybe just keep lying, keep playing both sides, keep pretending I mattered while building a real life with them. I thought about all the times I'd asked him about having children. "I'm not ready yet, Emma. We don't have the money. Maybe in a few years." He'd said that for 10 years, and the whole time, he had a daughter. A daughter he loved, a daughter he supported, a daughter he spent every weekend with while I believed his lies. I sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by the evidence of his betrayal, and I didn't cry. I was too angry to cry. Daniel was dead. But this pain he left behind, this was very much alive, and someone was going to pay for it. Follow this channel if you want to see what I did next. Because when the shock wore off, the anger took over, and I became someone I never thought I could be. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I stopped answering calls, stopped going to work. My principal called twice, said to take all the time I needed. My friends came by with casseroles and sympathy. I smiled, thanked them, closed the door, and went back to the darkness. I couldn't tell anyone. How do you explain that your husband, your devoted, loving husband, had a secret daughter for 8 years? That you were the idiot who never suspected? The fool who believed every lie? The humiliation was suffocating. I stopped eating. Food tasted like nothing. I'd stand in front of the fridge, stare at it, then walk away. I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks. Daniel's life insurance company called. The policy was being processed. $500,000, $500,000 for his death. Blood money. I should have felt something. Relief, maybe. That I wouldn't have to worry about the mortgage. But all I felt was rage. He'd kept this policy active for years. Kept me as the sole beneficiary while planning to change his will to include Sophie. Why? Was he waiting for the right moment? Waiting to hurt me even more? I went back to his office. I'd been avoiding it since that first night, but I needed to know more. I found another document buried in a drawer. A letter. Handwritten. Addressed to me. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. "Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you probably know the truth by now. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I am. I never meant for it to happen. Laura was a mistake at first. A conference, a few drinks, one night. But then she got pregnant, and I couldn't just walk away. Sophie is my daughter. I couldn't abandon her. I tried to tell you so many times. But you loved me so much, and I was too weak to break your heart. I know you wanted children. I know I lied about that. The truth is, I already had a child, and I didn't know how to give you one without destroying everything. I was going to tell you. I swear I was. I just needed more time. Please don't hate Sophie. She's innocent. She didn't ask for any of this. I hope you can forgive me someday. Daniel." I read it 3 times. Then I tore it into pieces. Forgive him? He stole 15 years of my life. He made me believe I was loved, cherished, chosen, while he built a whole other family behind my back. He let me think I wasn't enough, that something was wrong with me because he didn't want children with me. But the truth was, he just didn't want me. I was the backup plan, the safe choice, the woman who paid half the mortgage and asked no questions. Laura was the one he loved. Sophie was the child he wanted, and I was just the fool. I sat there on the floor, surrounded by torn paper, and something shifted inside me. The grief was gone. All that was left was ice-cold clarity. Daniel had taken everything from me. My trust, my future, my chance at motherhood. And now he was dead, beyond consequences, beyond punishment. But Laura wasn't. Sophie wasn't. They were still here, still breathing, still living the life Daniel gave them with my money, my time, my husband. I opened my laptop, searched for a lawyer, found one who specialized in estate disputes. I called and made an appointment for the next morning. I need to know my legal options, I told the receptionist. Regarding? I paused. Regarding protecting what's mine. The lawyer's office was cold and sterile. He was an older man, mid-60s, sharp eyes. I explained everything. He listened, took notes, nodded occasionally. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Legally, he said, Sophie has no claim to anything. She's not named in the will. Daniel never formally acknowledged her as his child in any legal documents. The life insurance is entirely yours. And Laura? She has even less standing. She was never married to him. No legal relationship whatsoever. I felt a dark satisfaction settle over me. So they get nothing? Nothing, he confirmed, unless you choose to give them something. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I need you to do some research for me, I said quietly. I need to know everything about Laura Mitchell, where she works, her financial situation, everything. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. May I ask why? I met his eyes. Because I want to know exactly what I'm dealing with before I decide what to do next. He nodded slowly and made a note. 2 days later, he called me back. Laura had lost her job 6 months ago. She was 3 months behind on rent. Sophie needed braces, expensive ones. Laura had been relying entirely on the money Daniel sent her. Money that had stopped the moment he died. She was drowning. And I had all the power. I sat there holding the phone and felt something dangerous bloom in my chest. Not sympathy. Strategy. Tell me in the comments, if someone destroyed your life, would you walk away or make them feel what you felt? Because I chose the latter. I spent 3 days planning, not crying, not grieving, planning. I researched Laura online, found her Facebook, her Instagram, both set to public, like she had nothing to hide. Photos of Sophie everywhere, birthday parties, school events. Daniel in some of them, his face half cropped out, like Laura knew better than to post him fully. But the recent posts told a different story. No more photos of nice restaurants or weekend trips. Just Sophie in their small apartment, playing with old toys. A post from 2 weeks ago. Grateful for what we have. The kind of thing people say when they're pretending everything's fine. She was struggling. Daniel's death hadn't just taken away her lover. It took away her income, her stability, her entire support system. Good. I wanted her to feel it. To understand what it's like when the ground disappears beneath you. But I needed to be smart about this. Destroying her outright wouldn't satisfy me. That would be too quick, too easy. She'd just be a victim then. A struggling single mother who lost her daughter's father. People would sympathize with her. No. I needed her to trust me first, to let me in, to believe I was something I wasn't. And then I'd take everything. I created a new email address, wrote a message. Dear Laura, my name is Emma. I was Daniel's wife. I know this must be strange to hear from me. I'm sure you're grieving too, and I don't want to add to your pain. But I saw Sophie at the funeral, and I can't stop thinking about her. She's Daniel's daughter. That makes her family, in a way. And despite everything that's happened, despite how much this hurts, I don't think it's fair for her to lose her father and have no connection to his memory. I'd like to meet with you if you're willing, just to talk, to understand. I know Daniel loved Sophie. I could see it in the way she looked at him that day. Please consider it. Emma. I read it over 5 times. It was perfect, sympathetic, vulnerable, Exactly what a heartbroken widow trying to do the right thing would write. I hit send. Then I waited. 2 days later, she responded. Emma, I don't even know what to say. I never thought you'd reach out. I'm so sorry for everything. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I am. I never wanted to hurt you. When I found out Daniel was married, Sophie was already 5, and I didn't know what to do. I'd be willing to meet. For Sophie's sake, if nothing else. She's been asking about him constantly, and I don't know how to help her understand. Thank you for being kind when you have every reason not to be. Laura. I stared at her words. Thank you for being kind. She had no idea. We met at a coffee shop near her apartment. Neutral ground. I got there early, ordered tea I wouldn't drink, and waited. When Laura walked in, she looked worse than I expected. Thinner. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and an old sweater. Nothing like the polished woman I'd imagined. She saw me and hesitated, then walked over slowly. Emma? She asked quietly. Hi, I said, forcing a small, sad smile. Thank you for coming. She sat down across from me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she started crying. I'm so sorry, she whispered, her voice breaking. I know you must hate me. I hate myself. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't know he was lying to you too. As if we were both victims. I reached across the table and touched her hand gently. I don't hate you, I lied. I'm angry. I'm hurt. But Sophie didn't choose this, and neither did you, really. She looked up at me, shocked, hopeful. You really mean that? I'm trying to, I said softly. Daniel's gone. Hating you won't bring him back. And that little girl, she lost her father. That's not her fault. Laura wiped her eyes, nodding. She's been so sad, Laura said. She doesn't understand why he's not coming back. She keeps asking when he'll visit again. My chest tightened, not with sympathy, but with anger. This child had seen Daniel every weekend, had his attention, his love, his time, while I got lies, but I kept my face soft, understanding. I'd like to meet her, I said. If that's okay with you. I want to know the part of Daniel I never got to see. Laura's eyes filled with tears again. Really? You'd do that? I think it might help, I said. For both of us. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what this means. Oh, I did. It meant I was in. And once I was in, I could destroy everything. Share this with someone who understands that sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's patient. Because I was just getting started. I met Sophie 3 days later. Laura invited me to their apartment, a small 2-bedroom in a rundown complex on the edge of town. The paint was peeling. The hallway smelled like old carpet and something fried. This was where Daniel spent his weekends, where he played father to a child that should have been ours. Laura opened the door, nervous, smiling too much. Come in, she said. Sophie's a little shy, but she's excited to meet you. I stepped inside. The apartment was tiny but clean. Toys in a basket by the couch, drawings taped to the fridge, a small dining table with mismatched chairs. And then I saw her. Sophie was sitting on the floor, coloring. When she looked up at me, I felt my breath catch again. Daniel's eyes, his smile, even the way she tilted her head. She stood up slowly, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Hi, she said quietly. Hi, Sophie, I replied, crouching down to her level. I'm Emma. I was your dad's friend. I couldn't say wife. Not to her. Not yet. Mommy said you wanted to meet me, Sophie said. I did. Your dad talked about you a lot. A lie. But she didn't know that. Her face lit up. He did? All the time, I said, smiling. He said you were smart and funny and really good at drawing. Sophie beamed and ran to grab a stack of papers. Look, I drew this one yesterday. She showed me a picture of a man holding a little girl's hand. The man had green eyes. My throat tightened. That's beautiful, I said softly. Laura stood in the doorway watching, tears in her eyes again. She's been drawing him every day, Laura whispered. I stayed for an hour, played with Sophie, listened to her talk about school, about her rabbit, about how her dad used to take her to the park. Every word was a knife. But I smiled, laughed, pretended I was healing. When I left, Laura walked me to the door. Thank you, she said again. This meant so much to her, to both of us. I'd like to come back, I said. If that's okay? Of course, Laura said quickly. Anytime. I started visiting once a week, brought Sophie books, art supplies, a new stuffed animal, watched her light up every time I walked through the door, and slowly, carefully, I started helping Laura. How are you holding up financially? I asked one afternoon, after Sophie went to her room to play. Laura's face fell. Honestly, not great. I lost my job a few months ago. Daniel was helping, but now... She trailed off. What do you need? I asked gently. I don't want to ask you for anything, Laura said quickly. You've already been so kind. Laura, I said, putting my hand on hers, Sophie is part of Daniel's life. That makes her part of my responsibility too, in a way. Let me help. Her eyes filled with tears for the 100th time. I'm 3 months behind on rent, she admitted quietly. And Sophie needs braces. The dentist says it's urgent, but I can't afford it. I've been applying everywhere, but no one's hiring and... How much do you need? I interrupted. She hesitated. For rent, about $4,000. For the braces, another $6,000. $10,000. Pocket change compared to what Daniel had left me. I'll take care of the rent, I said, and we'll figure out the braces. Laura started sobbing. I don't know what to say. I don't deserve this. After everything... You're Sophie's mother, I said firmly. She needs you stable and healthy. This isn't about what anyone deserves. It's about doing what's right. She hugged me. Actually hugged me. And I stood there, letting her cry on my shoulder, feeling absolutely nothing. Over the next month, I paid her rent, covered Sophie's braces, enrolled Laura in an online certification program for medical billing, told her it would help her get a stable job. She was so grateful, so trusting. Sophie started calling me Aunt Emma, and I started preparing the documents. I met with my lawyer again. I need a contract, I said. Something that looks like a simple agreement, friendly, supportive, but I need it to be ironclad. What kind of agreement? He asked. I'm going to offer Laura financial support for 6 months. In exchange, she signs a document waiving any future claim to Daniel's estate, for her and for Sophie. And I want visitation rights to Sophie written in. Make it sound like I'm being generous, like I'm protecting everyone. The lawyer studied me for a long moment. You're setting a trap, he said quietly. I'm protecting what's mine, I corrected. He drafted the contract, pages of legal language that looked benign on the surface but gave me total control. I brought it to Laura on a Tuesday afternoon. Sophie was at school. We sat at her kitchen table with coffee. I've been thinking, I said carefully. I want to help you and Sophie long term, but I need to do it the right way, legally, so there are no misunderstandings later. Laura nodded, listening. I'm willing to cover your expenses for the next 6 months while you finish your certification and find work. Rent, utilities, Sophie's needs, everything. Her mouth fell open. Emma, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering, I said. But I need you to sign something, just a formality. It protects both of us, Make sure everything is clear and legal. I slid the document across the table. She barely glanced at it. What does it say? Just that you acknowledge the financial help and that there are no further claims on Daniel's estate, and that I can visit Sophie regularly as part of the family. Simple. Laura picked up the pen immediately. Where do I sign? I pointed. She signed, didn't read a single page, just trusted me. And just like that, I owned everything. The apartment, the custody arrangement, her silence. She had no idea what she'd just given me. I smiled warmly. Thank you, Laura. This is the right thing for everyone. She smiled back, relieved, grateful, completely unaware that she'd just walked into a cage. And I was holding the key. If you're hooked on this story, hit the follow button, because the moment I've been waiting for is finally here, and it's going to be brutal. Three months passed. I played the role perfectly. Every week I visited Laura and Sophie, brought groceries, helped Sophie with homework, listened to Laura talk about her certification program, how hopeful she felt, how grateful she was. I don't know what I would have done without you, she told me more than once. I smiled, hugged her, told her it was what Daniel would have wanted. All lies. But they believed every single one. Sophie grew attached to me. Really attached. She'd run to the door when I arrived, show me her drawings, tell me about her day at school. She started asking if I could come to her school play, her soccer games. Aunt Emma, can you sit with me and Mommy? She'd ask. And I'd say yes. I'd sit there in the audience watching this little girl perform, watching her wave at me with Daniel's smile and feel nothing. No warmth, no connection, just cold satisfaction that my plan was working. I was gathering everything I needed, screenshots of text messages between Laura and Daniel from years ago, messages where she clearly knew he was married, but continued the relationship anyway. Bank statements showing the money Daniel had been sending her, evidence I could spin however I wanted. And most importantly, that signed contract, the one she never read, the one that gave me legal standing to do whatever I wanted. Then, one afternoon, everything shifted. I arrived at Laura's apartment for my usual visit, let myself in with the keys she'd given me, another sign of trust. But the apartment was silent. Laura? I called. No answer. I walked toward Sophie's room and heard crying. Soft, broken, child crying. I opened the door. Sophie was sitting on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Sophie? What's wrong? She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. Mommy's been crying all day, she whispered. She won't stop. She won't tell me why. My chest tightened, not with sympathy, but with annoyance. This wasn't part of the plan. Where is she? Her room. I walked down the hall and knocked on Laura's door. Laura, it's Emma. A muffled sound. Then the door opened. Laura looked destroyed, worse than I'd ever seen her. Eyes completely bloodshot, face pale, hands shaking. What happened? I asked, keeping my voice concerned. She let out a choked sob and handed me an envelope. An eviction notice. I thought you said the rent was paid, she whispered. I looked at the paper. It was dated 2 weeks ago. I had paid the rent, every month, on time. But I'd also instructed my lawyer to quietly stop the payments 3 weeks ago and make sure the notice went out just as Laura was starting to feel secure again. This must be a mistake, I said, frowning. Let me look into it. I can't lose this apartment, Emma, Laura said desperately. I can't. Sophie's school is here. Everything is here. Get evicted. I don't know where we'll go. I'll fix it, I said firmly. Don't worry. I'll talk to the landlord. She grabbed my hand. Thank you. God, thank you. I smiled gently. But I didn't fix it. Instead, 2 days later, I showed up with more bad news. I talked to the landlord, I said, sitting across from her at the kitchen table. He said there's been some kind of banking error. The payments didn't go through. Laura's face went white. But you said you paid. I did, I said, confused, concerned. I don't understand what happened. But he's demanding the full amount now, or you have to leave by the end of the month. I don't have $12,000, Laura's voice cracked. I've been using everything you gave me for Sophie's braces and the certification program and… I know, I said softly. I know. She buried her face in her hands. This is all falling apart, she whispered. Everything. Again. I let the silence hang there for a moment. Then I leaned forward. Laura, I need to ask you something. She looked up, desperate, hopeful. Did you know Daniel was married when Sophie was born? Her face froze. What? I found some old messages, I said quietly, between you and Daniel, from 8 years ago. Her mouth opened, then closed. Emma. You knew, I said, my voice colder now. You knew he had a wife and you stayed with him anyway. It wasn't like that, she said quickly, tears spilling over. I didn't know at first, I swear. And when I found out, I tried to leave, but Sophie was 2 years old when you found out, I interrupted. I saw the messages, Laura. You wrote to him. You said, I don't care if you're married. I love you. She went pale. That was one message, one moment of weakness. I was young and stupid and… You destroyed my marriage, I said, standing up. You knew he had a wife, and you let him keep lying to me for 6 more years. Emma, please. I've been helping you, I said, my voice shaking now, not with sadness, but with rage. I've been paying your bills, supporting your daughter, pretending to forgive you, and the whole time, you lied to me. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing, I shouted. Sophie appeared in the doorway, eyes wide, terrified. Aunt Emma? I looked at her, this little girl with Daniel's face, and felt my resolve harden. I'm sorry, Sophie, I said quietly. But I can't do this anymore. Laura stood up, panicking. Emma, please, don't do this. We need you. Sophie needs you. You should have thought about that before you destroyed my life, I said. I grabbed my purse and walked toward the door. Laura followed, begging, sobbing. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't leave us like this. I stopped at the door and turned around. You want me to help you? I asked coldly. Yes, please. I pulled out the contract from my bag. The one she signed without reading. You signed this, I said. Do you even know what it says? Her face went blank. It says you waive all claims to Daniel's estate, that Sophie has no legal right to anything he left behind, and it gives me visitation rights to Sophie, rights that you can't revoke without breaching the contract. Laura stared at the paper, horrified. You tricked me. No, I said. You trusted me. That was your mistake. I opened the door. Wait, Laura said, her voice breaking. What are you going to do? I looked at her one last time. I'm going to let you figure it out on your own, I said. Just like I had to. And I walked out. Behind me, I heard Laura collapse onto the floor, sobbing, and Sophie, crying, asking what was happening. I got into my car, hands shaking, heart pounding, and for the first time in months, I smiled, a real smile, cold, satisfied, victorious. Comment below if you think I went too far. I didn't hear from Laura for 3 days. I expected her to call, to beg, to scream at me, but there was nothing, just silence. I went back to my routine, back to work, smiled at my students, graded papers, pretended everything was normal. But at night, alone in that house full of Daniel's lies, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Sophie's face, the way she'd looked at me in that doorway, confused and scared. Aunt Emma? I pushed it away. She wasn't my responsibility. None of this was my fault. Daniel did this. Laura did this. Not me. On the fourth day, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Crying. Immediate, desperate crying. Please, a small voice said. Please come back. My breath caught. Sophie? Mommy won't stop crying, she sobbed. She won't eat. She just stays in her room. I don't know what to do. My chest tightened. Sophie, where did you get this number? From Mommy's phone. Please, Aunt Emma. I'm scared. I closed my eyes. Sophie, I'm sorry if I did something wrong, she whispered. I'm sorry if Mommy did something wrong. Just please don't leave us. And something inside me cracked. Not guilt. Not yet. But something. I'll come by tomorrow, I heard myself say. Promise? I hesitated. Promise. She hung up. I sat there in the silence, staring at my phone. What was I doing? This was the plan. Make them suffer. Make them feel what I felt. But hearing Sophie's voice, small and broken and afraid, didn't feel like victory. It felt hollow. I showed up the next morning. The apartment was worse than before. Dishes piled in the sink, trash overflowing, the curtains drawn. Sophie opened the door. Her hair was messy. She was still wearing pajamas even though it was almost noon. You came, she whispered, and threw her arms around me. I stood there, frozen, feeling her small body shaking against mine. Where's your mom? I asked quietly. Her room. I walked down the hall and knocked. Laura? No answer. I opened the door. She was lying in bed facing the wall. The room smelled stale. Empty water bottles on the nightstand. Laura, I said firmly. She didn't move. I know you're awake. Finally, she turned over, looked at me with empty, red eyes. What do you want? Her voice was flat, defeated. Sophie called me. I know, Laura said. I heard her. She's scared. So am I, Laura whispered. I sat down on the edge of the bed. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Laura said, You got what you wanted. I'm destroyed. Are you happy now? I opened my mouth to say yes, but the word wouldn't come. I thought I would be, I said instead. Laura let out a bitter laugh. Well, congratulations. You won. Did I? I asked quietly. She looked at me, confused. You have everything, Emma. The house, the money, the life. I have nothing. So yes. You won. And Daniel? I asked. Who won him? Laura's face crumpled. Neither of us, she whispered. He's gone. And we're both sitting here broken because of him. The truth of it hit me like a punch to the chest. She was right. Daniel had lied to both of us. Used both of us. Made both of us believe we were the one he loved. And now he was gone, untouched, while we tore each other apart. He told me he loved me, Laura said, tears streaming down her face. Every weekend he'd show up and tell me I was the one, that he was going to leave you, that we'd be a real family someday. My throat tightened. He told me the same thing, I said quietly, that I was his everything, that he'd never leave. We sat there in that dark, stale room, two women who'd loved the same liar. I didn't want to hurt you, Laura whispered. I know you don't believe that. But I didn't. When I found out he was married, I tried to end it. But Sophie, she adored him, and he swore he was going to leave, that it was just a matter of time. He was never going to leave, I said. I know that now. Silence. Then Laura said, I'm sorry. I looked at her. I'm sorry for not being stronger, she continued, for believing him, for letting Sophie get attached, for everything. And for the first time, I saw her clearly. Not as the villain, not as the homewrecker, but as another woman Daniel had destroyed. He did this, I said quietly. Not you, not me, him. Laura nodded, wiping her eyes. But I still played my part, she said. And I'm sorry. I stood up slowly. Sophie needs you, I said. She needs you to get out of this bed and take care of her. I don't know if I can, Laura whispered. You can, I said firmly, because she didn't ask for any of this, and she doesn't deserve to suffer for what Daniel did. Laura looked at me for a long moment. Then she sat up. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. I thought about the contract, the evidence, the power I had to destroy her completely. And I thought about Sophie, sitting in the living room, scared and alone. I don't know yet, I said honestly. I walked out of the room. Sophie was sitting on the couch, clutching her stuffed rabbit, watching me with wide eyes. Is Mommy okay? She asked. She will be, I said. Are you going to leave again? I looked at this little girl, innocent, scared, caught in the middle of a war she didn't understand. And I realized something. My revenge hadn't hurt Daniel. He was beyond pain. It had only hurt two people who never deserved it. A woman who'd been lied to, just like me, and a child who'd done nothing wrong. I don't know, Sophie, I said quietly. I need to think. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I left the apartment and sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. I'd wanted them to suffer, and they had, but it didn't bring Daniel back. It didn't undo the lies. It didn't heal anything. It just made more pain, and I was the one causing it. I drove home in silence, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Guilt. Raw, burning, suffocating guilt. Like this video if you've ever hurt someone and realized too late that it didn't make you feel better. Because I was about to find out that revenge has a price I wasn't prepared to pay. I didn't sleep that night either. I kept hearing Sophie's voice on the phone. Please don't leave us. I kept seeing Laura's face, empty, defeated, destroyed. By me, not by Daniel. By me. He'd hurt us both, yes, but I'd chosen to hurt them more. I'd chosen to manipulate, to trap, to punish. And for what? Daniel was still dead. My marriage was still a lie. And now I had two more broken people on my conscience. At 3 a.m, I finally admitted the truth to myself. I'd become the villain in someone else's story. The next day, I called my therapist. I hadn't seen her since the funeral. Hadn't wanted to. Therapy meant facing things, and I'd been too angry to face anything. But now, I had to. Emma, Dr. Rivera said when I walked into her office. I'm glad you called. I sat down and immediately started crying. Not the cold, empty tears I'd shed before. Real tears. Messy, ugly, broken tears. I did something terrible, I said. She waited. I told her everything, the plan, the contract, the manipulation, cutting off Laura when she needed me most, using Sophie to get close. All of it. When I finished, Dr. Rivera was quiet for a long moment. Why did you do it? She asked finally. Because I wanted them to hurt like I hurt, I said. I wanted them to feel what Daniel did to me. And did it work? I looked at her. No, I whispered. It made everything worse. Why? Because they're not Daniel, I said, my voice breaking. Laura didn't kill him. Sophie didn't ask to be born. They're just people. Flawed people who made mistakes, like everyone does. And I punished them for something Daniel did. Dr. Rivera nodded slowly. What do you want to do now? I don't know, I admitted. I'm so angry still, at him, at them, at myself. I don't know how to let it go. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting, she said gently. It means choosing not to let the pain control you anymore. But how? I asked desperately. How do I just stop being angry? You don't stop, she said. Not all at once. But you make a choice every day to not let that anger turn you into someone you don't want to be. I thought about Sophie's face, about Laura sobbing in her bed. I think I already became that person, I whispered. Then you can choose to stop being her, Dr. Rivera said. Starting now. I left her office with a plan, not for revenge this time, for repair. I drove to Laura's apartment. She answered the door slowly, warily. Her eyes were still red, but she was dressed, awake. Emma, she said quietly. Can we talk? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded and let me in. Sophie was at school. The apartment was still messy, but slightly better than before. We sat at the kitchen table. I'm sorry, I said before she could speak. Laura blinked, surprised. What? I'm sorry, I repeated. For everything. For manipulating you. For using Sophie. For cutting you off when you needed help. I was angry and I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair. Laura stared at me, mouth open. I don't understand, she said slowly. You have every right to hate me. I do hate you, I said honestly. Or I did. I don't know anymore. But hating you doesn't change what happened. It doesn't bring Daniel back. It doesn't fix anything. It just makes everything uglier. Tears filled her eyes. I ruined your life, she whispered. Daniel ruined both our lives, I corrected. You were just there, and you made choices I don't agree with. But you're not a monster. You're just a person who fell in love with the wrong man. Laura covered her face with her hands and sobbed. I'm so sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. I let her cry, didn't try to comfort her, just sat there. When she finally stopped, I said, I want to undo some of the damage. She looked up. The contract you signed, I said. It's legal, but I'm not going to enforce it. What does that mean? It means I'm not going to take Sophie from you, and I'm going to help you get back on your feet, really help you, not as a trap, just because it's the right thing to do. Laura's face crumpled again. Why? She whispered. Why would you do that? Because Sophie called me, I said quietly. And she was terrified, and I realized that punishing you meant punishing her, and she doesn't deserve that. I can't ask you to— You're not asking, I interrupted. I'm offering, one time, real help, and then we go our separate ways. Laura stared at me for a long moment. I don't know what to say. Say you'll accept it. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Over the next 2 weeks I helped her, really helped her this time. I paid the back rent, for real. Got her enrolled in a better certification program with actual job placement. Connected her with a friend who worked at a medical office and was hiring. I didn't visit Sophie. That part was too hard, too complicated. But I made sure she was taken care of. And slowly, I started to feel something other than rage. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe never. But acceptance. Daniel had lied. Laura had participated. I had been hurt. And none of it could be undone. But I could choose what happened next. I could choose to stop spreading the pain. One afternoon, Laura called me. I got the job, she said, her voice shaking with emotion. I start next week. That's great, I said. Emma, I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to, I said. Just take care of Sophie. That's enough. There was a pause. She asks about you sometimes, Laura said quietly. She misses you. My throat tightened. Tell her Aunt Emma is proud of her. I will. Another pause. Are we okay? Laura asked hesitantly. I thought about it. No, I said honestly. We're not. And we probably never will be. But we don't have to be enemies either. Fair enough, Laura said softly. We hung up, and I sat there in my empty house, feeling lighter than I had in months. The anger was still there. The hurt was still there. But the need for revenge? That was gone. Because I'd learned something Daniel never did. Hurting people doesn't make you powerful. Letting them go does. Tell me in the comments if you've ever had to choose between revenge and peace. Because the hardest part was still ahead. Learning to forgive myself. 6 months later, I stood in front of Daniel's grave for the first time since the funeral. I hadn't been able to face it before. Too much anger. Too much pain. But today felt different. The headstone was simple. His name. His dates. A phrase his mother had chosen. Beloved son, husband, and friend. Not father. Because even in death, Sophie remained a secret to most people. I stared at those words and felt nothing. Not love, not hate, just a strange, hollow emptiness. I don't know what to say to you, I said out loud. I've had 1,000 conversations with you in my head. Screamed at you, cursed you, begged you to explain why. The wind picked up, rustling the trees around the cemetery. But you're not here, I continued. You never really were you? The man I married? He didn't exist. He was just a character you played. I crouched down, touched the cold stone. I wanted to destroy everyone you left behind, I said quietly. I wanted them to hurt like I hurt. And I did that. I hurt them. And it didn't fix anything. It just made me someone I didn't recognize. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I don't forgive you, I whispered. I don't think I ever will. You stole 15 years of my life. You made me believe I wasn't enough, that something was wrong with me, when the truth was you were just a coward who couldn't be honest. I stood up slowly. But I'm done letting you control my life. You're gone. And I'm still here, and I get to decide what happens next. I wiped my eyes and turned away from the grave. For the first time since his death, I didn't look back. The money from Daniel's life insurance sat in my account for months. I couldn't touch it. It felt dirty, like blood money. But eventually, I knew what to do with it. I contacted a lawyer, a different one this time, and set up an educational trust fund for Sophie, not through Laura. Not as a gift to her, but directly for Sophie's future. College, trade school, whatever she wanted. The money would be there when she turned 18. Laura would never have access to it, never know the full amount. Just that it existed. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement that a child shouldn't pay for her father's sins. The lawyer handled everything. I signed the papers and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Daniel's money would do some good after all. I started therapy twice a week. Dr. Rivera helped me untangle the mess of emotions, the betrayal, the rage, the guilt over what I'd done to Laura and Sophie. You're not a bad person for being angry, she told me during one session. You were hurt deeply, betrayed in the worst way. But you have to separate the hurt from the action. Being hurt doesn't justify hurting others. I know that now, I said. Do you forgive yourself? She asked. I thought about it. I'm trying, I said. Some days are easier than others. She nodded. That's all you can do. Try. I ran into Laura one day at the grocery store. We both froze when we saw each other. For a moment, neither of us knew what to do. Then she gave me a small, cautious smile. Hi, Emma. Hi, I said. How are you? Getting better, I said honestly. You? Same, she said. The job is going well. Sophie's doing great in school. That's good. An awkward pause. Listen, Laura said quietly. I know we're not friends. And I know what happened between us. It's complicated. But I wanted you to know that I'm grateful for what you did at the end. I nodded. Take care of her. I will, Laura said. Always. We parted ways without another word. No reconciliation, no friendship. Just mutual acknowledgement that we'd survived something horrible and come out the other side. It was enough. I sold the house 6 months later. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I bought a small condo downtown, closer to my school. Started over, new furniture, new routines, a new life that had nothing to do with Daniel. I joined a book club, started painting again, something I'd loved before marriage but had given up. Reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with. Slowly, piece by piece, I rebuilt myself. Not as Daniel's wife. Not as the woman he betrayed. Just as Emma. On my 40th birthday, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine and looked out at the city lights. 2 years had passed since Daniel's funeral. 2 years since my world shattered. I thought about everything that had happened. The lies, the betrayal, the revenge, the guilt, the healing. And I realized something. The best revenge wasn't destroying Laura or Sophie or anyone Daniel had touched. The best revenge was living, really living, building a life he couldn't touch, finding happiness he couldn't ruin, refusing to let his lies define me. I raised my glass to the night sky. You lose, Daniel, I whispered, because I'm still here and I'm finally free. And for the first time in 2 years, I smiled. A real smile, warm and genuine and full of hope. Because I'd learned something Daniel never understood. You can't destroy someone who refuses to stay broken. 3 months ago, I started dating again. Nothing serious. Just coffee with a colleague from school. Dinner with a man I met at a bookstore. I'm not looking for forever. Not yet. But I'm open to possibility, to connection, to the idea that maybe, someday, I can trust again. Not because I've forgotten what Daniel did, but because I've decided he doesn't get to write the rest of my story. I do. And my story isn't about revenge anymore. It's about survival, strength, redemption. It's about choosing, every single day, to be better than the pain that tried to break me. Last week, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name written in careful handwriting. I opened it. Inside was a drawing. A woman with brown hair standing under a sun. At the bottom, in a child's handwriting. Thank you, Aunt Emma. Love, Sophie. I stared at it for a long time. Tears slid down my cheeks. Not from sadness, but from something else. Relief, peace, release. I pinned the drawing to my fridge, not as a reminder of what happened, but as a reminder of what I chose. I chose mercy over revenge, healing over hate, and in the end, that choice saved me. Daniel took a lot from me, my trust, my innocence. Years I can never get back. But he didn't take everything. He didn't take my strength, my resilience, my ability to choose who I become. And that was the real victory. Not revenge, freedom. I still think about him sometimes, about the man I thought he was, about the life I thought we had. But I don't cry anymore. I just acknowledge it happened, accept that I can't change it, and keep moving forward. Because in the end, the woman who showed up at my husband's funeral with his child didn't destroy me. She gave me the truth. And the truth, painful as it was, set me free. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Because if you're reading this and you've been betrayed, lied to, or broken by someone you loved, know this: you will survive. You will heal. And one day, you'll realize that the best revenge isn't destroying them. It's refusing to let them destroy you.